We have tons of news and rumors to discuss here today. We're only 2 days out from the draft. Lots of activity. Today we're looking at rumors surrounding the Maple Leafs, the Edmonton Oilers, Montreal Canadiens, Detroit Red Wings, Buffalo Sabres, the new team in Utah, UFA rumors around Steven Stamkos and some other prominent names out there. The latest on Marty Necas as well at Carolina. We have big news regarding some new jerseys, new rule changes, and lots of other news and notes, and including a couple signings around the NHL. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have tons of news, some rumors to take a look at today. Before we do any of that, though, I just want to take a moment and talk about a piece of news that just came out just before I started to record. And we've got word that one of the alumni of the NHL, former Maple Leaf draft pick back in 1994, Sergei Berezin, unfortunately has passed away at the young age of 52. He got over 500 games played in the NHL. From what I've heard about him as a person, it sounds like a pretty good person. It was a fun teammate to be around. Lots of good comments that way. I know after retirement he was a youth coach and did a lot of other things around the sports world. So certainly I'm not sure what happened or the cause or anything of that nature, but I do know that 52 is a young age and way too young to lose somebody of that nature. So certainly want to pass along our condolences to his friends and family for sure. Incredibly sad news on that front. On some other news, we do get word today that there's going to be I guess we're going to call it probably like a challenge series between the top prospects of the Canadian Junior Hockey Leagues and the United States National Team Development Program. So starting next year, not sure exactly when it's going to start or what dates we're looking at or anything like that. Those details will be confirmed a little bit later, but NHL reporters are saying that the CHL and the USA program will have a 2-game challenge series to put the top prospects from each program on display, which is nice to see. A lot of these players, sometimes you don't really get to see, a lot go head to head. I mean, there's the World Juniors, which is a little bit different. So that's certainly going to be. I think we're going to see some changes with all the rule changes coming to the NCAA and everything, all the legal stuff. I honestly think we're going to see more and more changes to that level of hockey. But this is one of the early beginnings for sure. Of course, today begins the new Fanatics contract for the NHL and the jerseys. Many teams have put out releases on what their jerseys are going to look like. Most of them are kind of remaining the same, except instead of saying Adidas on it, it's going to say Fanatics. Should be a pretty seamless transition. I know some have their issues with Fanatics, but I know the Ducks and the Kings are going with new looks. I'll show you some pictures here. Of course, the Ducks are going back to a Mighty Ducks type logo. They're going with the orange and the white. I really like these myself. I think they're pretty cool looking. I really like the old Mighty Ducks stuff. So anytime they incorporate that, to me, it's good. They're going with like an Orange County, I guess, type of feel for the style and color scheme here. So certainly like that one. The Kings ones look really sharp as well, kind of going with the old the retro Kings logo. I know we saw the Kings logo update here in the last few days. Obviously they look really sharp as well with the black, silver, white. I've always liked those jerseys. I mean, mind you, the other Kings jerseys that we've seen with the purple I also thought were pretty sharp as well. But Ducks and Kings going with a little bit of a refresh for next season. So certainly lots of nice jerseys there for sure. Some of the nicer ones across the NHL, I must say. I really like both of those kits for sure. Lots of other news around the NHL today. The NHL has confirmed through one of their general manager meetings that they are going ahead with some rule changes for next season. Nothing too significant, but we do have a few that you'll probably see often enough be impacted. The coach's challenge is going to be expanded a bit, including some puck over glass, and it's not going to be they're not going to be able to challenge for a missed call. So if the puck goes straight out and they feel it, well, at least if the coaches feel it did and the refs don't call it, they can't challenge for that. But if there is a call made and they don't feel it should be a penalty, they can challenge it. So that's an expansion to the coach's challenge that'll be in for next year. Attacking players will now get warned instead of kicked out of the face-off circle during a face-off after an icing call. So that's a minor tweak there as well. When it comes to accidentally knocking off the net, we've seen it happen a few times. A few goalies especially that were kind of guilty of it, kind of accidental on purpose type of deal to try to get a whistle, help your team. That is being looked at as well, that if the goalie is determined to have done it intentionally. The defending team won't be able to change, and the offensive team will be able to pick what side they want their face-off on. So there's that. And the unsportsmanlike penalties being expanded as well to include players hanging over the boards prior to a change. Essentially, part of that is from a safety perspective, having too many skates in the air. Might it cut down on too many men penalties? I'm not sure. We'll see. But yeah, so you won't be able to see players kind of dangling over the boards, waiting for their other teammate to get close enough to the bench for them to hop on. So some minor tweaks to the rules that'll kick in next season. A bunch of other notes around the NHL as well. Gary Bettman did confirm the reports that we've discussed in the past couple of days regarding the Arizona Coyotes and I guess now former owner Alex Merulo walking away and not pursuing any further arena options after the cancellation of the land auction. Of course, we had done a video right after Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. News broke that night that they were not going to be moving forward with any additional plans or attempts at an arena, and he was done. So Bettman's confirmed that. That means that all of the owning of the Arizona Coyotes name, logos, all their rights to everything is now back in the hands of the NHL. So they have every right now to consult with other potential ownership groups if they want and try to get this figured out long term. I think the NHL would really like to be in that market again someday. A lot of the new owners, potentially, whoever they may be, may run into a lot of the same issues. It's hard to say, but a lot of it's going to be dependent, I think, on how they do business. I don't think Merulo really did himself any favors for how he conducts himself, builds relationships, and all that type of stuff. So definitely not a great people person in that sense, at least not in the sports world. So we'll see. But that is now official on the NHL side as well as just a news story. Glenn Sather, longtime NHL executive who spent the last 24 years with the New York Rangers and a long stretch in the NHL prior to that with the Edmonton Oilers, is announcing his retirement. So, of course, he's been heavily involved with building a lot of teams over the years between Edmonton and New York, and has had a long, successful career. So certainly it's probably more than enough time. I mean, he could have retired any time. He's really been as a consultant here for the last little while with the Rangers. So certainly wish him the best in retirement. Speaking of guys that are potentially retiring, Oilers GM Ken Holland, whose contract is expiring, is not expected to be back with the Oilers next season. He's not expected to be with the Oilers at the draft this coming weekend either. There's no really clear answer yet on what the Oilers plan to do with their structure. Of course, they hired Jeff Jackson, former agent to Connor McDavid, to be the CEO, is what they call him. I don't really know if he's kind of calling the shots or how they plan to structure the management there. I don't know if they'll have somebody else slide into like in a GM role or what. There was some belief that there was going to be a role offered to Holland within the organization if he wanted it, but I don't think he was going to be anything to do with making the decisions around the roster. I don't think it was going to be like a president or a GM role. So belief is that he's considering retirement, but also considering other options. There was a story out today about linked him to Chicago. That doesn't appear to have anything to that, though, so we'll see. He could pop up somewhere, but not expected back with Edmonton next year. A couple of signings today. The Utah franchise, Utah HC, have signed I guess he goes by Spicy Tuna, Liam O'Brien. He gets a 3-year contract extension at $1 million per season. Of course, he made a grand entrance when they had the first introduction to the fans there after the move was first announced, and he certainly made quite an impression on the stage with the microphone. Liam O'Brien, of course, Atlantic Canadian, is quite the personality there, so he gets a nice contract for him. Will be a nice physical presence for the Utah franchise. The Vancouver Canucks, they also confirmed they've re-signed pending unrestricted free agent Teddy Bluger. He gets a 2-year deal at $1.8 million to remain with the Vancouver Canucks. That's a terrific signing. Of course, Bluger, well familiar with the management and coaching staff there, came from Pittsburgh. So between Tocchet and Rutherford, Alvin, they all have known this player for an extremely long period of time. Teddy Bluger really gets it. This is a good contract, good depth signing. For a middle bottom 6'10" player at $1.8 million, I think that's really good value, to be honest. So good deal, good signing there by the Canucks. A whole bunch of different rumors that we're going to take a look at here. Some of it's regarding free agency, some of it's around trades, and we're just going to go through everything and see what's out there in the rumor mill. Some of this may happen, some of it may not. Hard to say. The news cycle when it comes to the rumor mill this time of year moves and changes very, very quickly. So we'll see what happens. But as of right now, it looks like the Utah franchise is looking heavily on the trade market. They would like to add a top pair defenseman. As of right now, they don't have much signed in the way of D on their franchise at all. I believe Sean Durzi, is their main top defenseman as of right now, and he potentially is going to be a solid top 4 guy for them for sure, but they definitely want to add on the blue line, and if they can find a top pair defenseman, which is not going to be easy, they might be able to maybe find something in free agency, but they're looking. It's funny because that franchise not long ago traded Jacob Chychrun to Ottawa, who is maybe available. I wonder if they would consider a reunion. Of course, Chychrun wasn't happy in Arizona, but now that the team has sold, new ownership and everything, I wonder. I'm not sure what they could offer to Ottawa that they would like. I mean, there's maybe some forwards there. Hard to say. I have no information to suggest that those two teams are talking. It's just kind of odd to me that they're looking for a top pair of defensemen when, in my opinion, they just traded one not too long ago. A couple of notes on the Maple Leafs. Ilya Lyubushkin, Joel Edmondson most likely won't be back. Can't say that 100%, but right now it's looking like the Leafs are most likely going in a different direction on their blue line. Timothy Liljegren is another name who needs a new contract as an RFA. Is talking to the Leafs about a new contract. There is still some speculation around Liljegren that he could be moved, so we'll have to see what they do, but there could be a decent shakeup on the Leafs defense. Max Domi and Tyler Bertuzzi still talking to Toronto about a potential extension, but it does look like as of right now, things can always change, but right now it looks like they're likely going to go to market on Monday when free agency starts. Doesn't mean they won't be back with the Leafs, just means they're going to be allowed to talk to other teams, and once they get to talking to other teams, things can happen quickly. It's hard to say how things go, but right now, no guarantee either of them are back. I would think that there's definitely interest from the Leafs to sign at least one or both of them. It's really going to boil down to the price tag, the money. So we'll see from that perspective if any of that can work. Of course, I know when it comes to the Leafs as well, Mitch Marner's name is still getting a ton of play, a ton of attention. I know Dave Pagnotta's reporting on the fact that he says that, according to what he's heard, there's at least 4 teams that Marner would accept a trade to. I know Frank Saravalli, again, is kind of tripling down on the fact that he believes the Leafs want to do everything in their power to find a Mitch Marner trade to change the dynamic of the team and to just really shake things up. Obviously, we know that they said everything is on the table. Doesn't mean that they're going to make a trade just for the sake of making a trade. They're not going to do that just to be like, oh, well, we did something. Let's hope it works. They're obviously going to want to be very careful, and I've suggested all along if they're going to trade Marner, I understand the frustration with some fans with this player and with the team. I'm not sure what the franchise actually thinks and the management and whatnot, but he is a really good player. No matter what you say, no matter what you think, he puts up a ton of points. He does do a lot of good for that team. So you have to be very, very careful. It's almost impossible to win those deals. So I don't know. Pagnotta he's not saying that for sure it's happening. He just says that he knows of some teams that from what he's heard that Mitch would go to, and Saravalli is mainly the main one that's kind of doubling and tripling down on the fact that he thinks the Leafs absolutely do not want to re-sign him and that they're trying their hardest this week to find something to get a trade done. So we'll see if Frank is right or not. Sometimes he's bang on, other times it's not. I mean, you can't. No insiders is 100% accurate at every turn here. So we'll see, but the Leafs are definitely going to be a very interesting team to watch, and you're going to probably hear a ton of stuff about Marner. According to Pagnotta as well, the reports that were out a couple of days ago about the Utah franchise and Marner going there, apparently they were really upset. They were really mad about that report, saying there was absolutely nothing to it. So again, I don't expect teams to come out and reveal their trade plans either, so not like you're going to get a GM come out and talk about a trade rumor and say, oh yeah, it's true, I'm talking to this team and that team and this team. Like, they don't do that. They're never going to do that. So like I said, when you hear GM speak, you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, because they're not going to come out and reveal their plans to you. They're just not. So they're always going to deny stuff, because that's just from a leverage perspective, negotiating and how it's going to work out. So you got to be careful what you hear, what you say, and like, when you hear GMs talk, you just got to be like, okay, you got to try to read between the lines ultimately, which is difficult to do on the best of days for sure. Now, on to some other teams. The New York Rangers, more talks as well, including from Chris Johnston of TSN, talking about how there are more reports that the Rangers are trying to move Jacob Trouba. Now, doesn't mean it's going to happen. He does have some control here, and clearly he's got a big contract, $8 million, some term left on it, but Chris Drury is working hard to try to find some cap space. It's believed that of all their core members that Trouba would be the preferred guy to move. Again, like I said, doesn't mean it's going to happen. They're definitely in on Patrick Kane. Doesn't mean Kane's going to sign there either, but they are one of the front runners and teams that are expressing the most interest. So we'll have to kind of wait and see how all this plays out. But Chris Drury and the Rangers are definitely trying to be busy. They have not been pleased with the results. They've thought the last couple of years they were good enough to win a cup, and they did not. So they're obviously trying to make some adjustments and get better. And clearly, like I said, if you look at how the playoffs went this year, in my opinion, Jacob Trouba was a major liability for them. If they can find a way to move off that contract, they probably should. It gets them a lot more flexibility. So we'll have to see what happens. But, Chris Johnston and many of the other reporters talking about the fact that Trouba's name is definitely out there. And we'll have to wait and see where things go. In Montreal, a couple of names to watch there. Christian Dvorak and Yoel Armia, a couple of veteran guys that are entering the final year of their contracts that Ken Hughes would like to try to find a new home for to create some more flexibility there in Montreal, not only with cap space, but with roster spots as well. Obviously, Montreal could do other things. Like I said, they're still expected to make a move for a top young player. Doesn't mean that's going to happen for sure. I mean, Hughes has done it the past 2 drafts where he got Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook. Just because he wants to do it doesn't mean he's going to find a deal that he likes, that he's willing to pay the price for. So again, caution you, Montreal and Ken Hughes and Jeff Gorton are trying to do that. Moving guys like Dvorak and Armia are not going to probably really impact that side of things, but they might be able to get some capital maybe from there, or ability that might help out. I mean, although I would suspect with the contracts of Dvorak and Armia that there wouldn't be much of a return. More than anything would probably be a type of a cap dump. So we'll see what they do, but do expect them to be busy here in the coming days. Frank Saravalli also had a report out about the Ottawa Senators saying that he believes that they've got Thomas Chabot on the trade block. Again, Steve Staios, the GM of the Sens, did speak today to the media like a lot of GMs are doing prior to the draft, and he completely denied that again. But again, like I said, just because a GM denies the report doesn't mean really much of anything. They're not going to reveal their plans. Is it possible that a team inquired about Chabot? Is it possible that his name could have come up? Absolutely. I'm not convinced that they're out there shopping him. But I think if they found the right deal, I don't really know that anybody besides maybe Brady Tkachuk and Tim Stützle are probably untouchable. So I don't, as much as the Sens really respect, value Chabot and what he brings, I don't know that he's at a point where they'd never, ever consider it either. So we know we've heard a lot about Chychrun in the future, but again, if they did move Chabot, and I'm not saying they are, but if they did, that would likely mean Chychrun staying. Because like I said, the fact they're not trying to move Chychrun because they don't like the player. They just can't have 3 left-shot defensemen making $8 million. It's just not feasible. And they really could balance things out on the blue line to try to bring in a right shot defenseman. So we'll see what happens there. So obviously some conflicting reports on the Chabot rumors, but again, I'm not convinced that they are shopping him. But if the big a deal came along, they had a chance to get a real big piece they were real thrilled with, I don't think they'd be completely opposed to it either. So we'll see. The Sabres are definitely active out there. I know when it comes to Marty Necas, Pierre LeBrun of TSN is reporting that there's a new team to kind of jump to the front of the line, so to speak, be the front runners, and he believes it could be the Buffalo Sabres. The Sabres might be offering the 11th overall pick, which is surprising to me because I'm not surprised the Sabres would try to move the pick. I think they're open to it because they need to win now. They've got tons of young players, so whether they pick somebody and that player becomes an impact player in 2 to 3 years down the road, not going to help them today. They need to get in to the playoffs as soon as possible. So ideally, they need to take steps forward. A player like Natchez would certainly move the needle a lot faster than anybody they draft. However, with that said, the reports from the Hurricanes and the asking price on Natchez has been more of a hockey trade, not a future-based package. So at this point, unless the Carolina Hurricanes are just not getting that package and they're willing to look at other options now, maybe things would change a bit. But I know just the way the run was going on, he said that they're offering a first-rounder and something else. So maybe they get a decent young player, but I mean, unless the Hurricanes then turn around and flip those assets, I don't know. To me, I can see why it makes sense for Buffalo. I just don't know how it makes sense for Carolina. So we'll have to see. But sometimes, like I said, there's a third team involved or one trade impacts another, and sometimes things don't make sense immediately, like we saw with the Red Wings and the Jake Wellman trade. A lot of us are still scratching our head wondering there's got to be more coming because it doesn't make any sense. But the belief is that Steve Yzerman and the Red Wings are looking at trying to upgrade their goaltending, and that's going to cost a little bit of money. They want some extra space to do that. Plus, they want to try to bring back Shane Gostisbehere, who's a UFA on the blue line as well. They got to pay Mo Seider. They got to pay Lucas Raymond, and those are not going to come cheap. If they want to upgrade their goaltending, there was belief yesterday that John Gibson of the Anaheim Ducks was somebody they were seriously taking a look at. Of course, Yzerman's old buddy, Pat Verbeek, the GM of the Ducks, runs that team, so certainly those two have a long history. I'm sure they can have some good conversations around potential deals, but it's also believed that they might be looking at Tristan Jarry out of Pittsburgh as well. It did raise a lot of eyebrows when they re-signed Alex Nedeljkovic in Pittsburgh, and I'm not 100% convinced that the Penguins moved Jarry, but if they could move him and they can get the right deal to move off that contract, I think they would. So we'll have to see what happens. I can see Detroit being a fit. Maybe they move Ville Husso either in that deal or a separate deal. But it is believed that they're exploring some options, and it's not just Gibson they're looking at. Jerry reportedly in the mix there as well. When it comes to Tampa and Steven Stamkos, at this point, we still don't have any reports saying things are getting close or anything of that nature. But Pierre LeBrun did make mention on TSN Insider Trading that if Stamkos does make it to the market on Monday and he's not signed and he can speak to other teams, that he expect the Nashville Predators to be a team that makes a big push, makes a big offer to try to bring him to Nashville. Clearly that team wants more scoring. They want some, if they can get a veteran guy in free agency like Stamkos, that's exactly what they're looking for. Somebody who's won before, who's still got a lot of I think gas in the tank and ability to be productive. I don't know what the contract would look like. I think Stamkos' first preference, of course, is to remain in Tampa. They don't have a lot of space, though. And we know that as much as they want to keep him, they're not going to overpay to do it either. If we do see Tampa making any of their cost-cutting moves in the next day or two, then that's going to probably indicate they're trying to make room to bring him back. But if things do make it to market, look for Nashville to be a player. I wouldn't rule out Detroit either. There's been some talk about them, but at the same time, we know Yzerman does not like to give term to older players. If he's not bringing back Patrick Kane, or at least it's believed that it's not that he doesn't want to bring Kane back, it's just that he doesn't necessarily want to give the term that he wants. And if it doesn't happen and Kane leaves and goes to New York or somewhere else, that's probably going to be what caused it to go that way. So with Stamkos, he's going to want some term too. So I don't know that Yzerman is going to want to do that, but we will see. I know that they're not exactly the same age, but still, Stamkos is an aging player. If he signs a longer-term contract, this could be his last one. So we'll have to see on that front. Lots to talk about Leon Draisaitl today as well, with the Oilers, of course, losing in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. Chris Johnson talked about it on his podcast. He talked about it in TSN Insider Trading. Of course, we know Leon's entering the final year of his deal this coming season. So come July 1, he's eligible for an extension. In the end-of-season media availability the Oilers did today, Leon was non-committal about talking about that. But at the same time, you got to understand, they just literally lost Game 7. I'm sure they're not over that loss and everything of that nature. On his podcast, Chris Johnson was talking about the fact that if Leon gives indication to the Oilers this summer that he doesn't want to sign an extension and wants to play out the contract, then they really need to consider trading him for asset management purposes, you could say, and kind of, moving forward. I know there's already some of the betting sites out there have already got bets you can make to determine his next team. In Boston was right at the top of the list. Of course, there's been a lot of talk about David Pastrnak and him and their friendship. and Pasta trying to recruit him to go to Boston when he was able to. So, again, I'm not entirely convinced that's going to happen. On insider trading, CJ also did say, though, that from all indications right now is that Leon and the Oilers are on the same page. And it's believed that there is very much mutual interest to extend and keep his time there in Edmonton. He wants to win. He has unfinished business. There's no doubt. When players are, you could say, non-committal about talking about a contract extension right after the playoffs, it's too soon. They're still processing things. They're going to need some time to think and kind of just, get past everything before they have a clear head and really able to make long-term commitments and decisions. But Leon did say that, he's very much loves being in Edmonton and loves the organization, and that obviously they would be first in line to get an extension done because that's where he plays, and that's hard to imagine him anywhere else. But again, this is not a story I don't think is going to be developing at all anytime soon. July 1 is only the beginning of the window that opens for Leon to sign an extension with the Oilers. If we get later into the summer and there's reports that he's not interested, then that's going to cause concern, and the Oilers at that point may be nervous and decide maybe we need to consider a trade. But until we get to that point, I'm not convinced that it's really anywhere to happen. But it's because it's the first time really that the Oilers have been kind of talking to the media. Their season's finally over now, and it's just drawing a lot of attention to it. But as far as Draisaitl goes, I know it's been brought up before. I don't see him leaving, but it's too early to say. If he decides he doesn't want to be there, that's a different story and all bets are off. But for right now, we can't say that with any kind of certainty at all. That is all your news and rumors here for today. So, of course, as always, let me know your thoughts on everything down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. There's going to be all kinds of content coming your way over the next few days. All kinds of content regarding the 24 NHL draft, all the latest trade talk. We got free agency coming up. It's going to be a very, very busy news cycle here over the next 4, 5, 6, 7 days. So stay tuned. This is a great place to get all your updates and have great conversations around all the transactions. So let me know in the comments what you think of today's news. Subscribe if you're new. Stick around, and I'll catch you next time.